about this pilot project in Alberta. So why did you agree to go along? What's the benefits, or what do you think about it?
Well, I think there are things to be learned in this pilot. We've been working with a number of jurisdictions, including Alberta, at looking at ways in which, utilizing testing and contact tracing, we might be able to improve the efficiency of people moving back and forth across the border for those essential travelers who do have to cross.
But what I'm wondering, though, it's because you give them they have a negative result, and then they have to take one in 6 days. But what if in between they're super spreaders? Like, is there a risk there that the numbers would go up?
Oh, no.
Because of that?
My understanding is that there would be a quarantine requirement in those 6 day period, so that they could not go and super spread. That this pilot, if effective, and we've got lessons to learn from it, might enable us to truncate the period of quarantine, to shorten it, so that people could get on with life. But we want to make sure that it's safe, because our first priority has to be the protection of Canadians.
So they have to stay quarantined in between.
Oh, yes.
On the controversy at the University of Ottawa concerning the use of the N-word, is that a question of academic freedom?
Well, I believe we have to make sure that the rector of University of Ottawa made it clear today that we need to make sure that academic freedom is respected, but at the same time it has to be discussed and make sure that we respect the people in the room.
But when it comes to that word, is it even a question? Why is it a question?
Well, we are facing systemic racism right now, and we are trying to make sure that people understand that this is not a word that we should be using. And I believe that the University of Ottawa is dealing with it, and the students are right to support the fact that that word is not to be used in class. Thank you.
The Bloc wasn't too happy with the way that your party voted. They're calling the NDP lapdogs. Basically that you'll do whatever the Liberals say. Any chance you're afraid that your party's going to be, considered, just another, the Liberal B team or something like that?
Well, I think one of the things that I was concerned about, if I understood it correctly, is that the Bloc's priority during question period was trying to defend the use of the N-word in academia at a time when we were dealing with extreme anti-blackness across the country, at a time when we're dealing with COVID. They felt it their priority in that particular moment to use question period to defend the use of the N-word in academia, which I found to be absolutely absurd, given the context of everything that was happening.
So tell us, what do you think about that? Because they're saying that this is an issue of, there are probably MPs within the Bloc that think the N-word is a deplorable word and it should never be said. But should we force people to, and should we say that that word is off limits? That you will be fired, that you will be canceled, that this is,
Yeah, I think we have to listen to the people who are living the experiences in these institutions, the Black professors, the staff, the students, who are all saying that this is an unacceptable environment that wouldn't be accepted in any other context, but seems to be defended in certain institutions and certain political circles in Quebec. And I don't think it really holds water anywhere else in the country. And, for somebody who has had that word hurled against them from the time I was 9 years old to, pick any moment online now as a politician, I can share with you, that is a dehumanizing word. It is a form of racial violence against people. And for those that would choose to defend it, what they're really defending is the prerogative to uphold white supremacy.
And you know that, and I know that. But in academic discourse, let's just say that there's a text that uses this word. Or, maybe you're analyzing, rap music or something like that, which frequently uses that word. Should that word be expunged?
Well, I think that is a debate that people are going to continue to have under the guise of freedom of speech, which is often adopted in an American context that is somehow supposed to be a universal right, above and beyond the experiences of people who are often targeted with that language. In Canada, we have the freedom of expression, and there's always a reasonable limit. And so my concern is for the students and the professionals, be they workers in these institutions or the academics, who are feeling targeted by this word, and quite frankly, for those who would seek to uphold white supremacy in a way that would use free speech as some sort of free way to continue racist attacks on the black community in Canada. And beyond that, given the context of everything that was happening yesterday, I just want to share with you that, there's been multiple occasions in which the Bloc has been obstructive to dismantling, in my opinion, online hate and a UC motion that I put forward, the situation that Jagmeet was faced with. And so, with all the things going on today, I just found it peculiar that a party who's been basically missing in action for all of COVID is going to come out and suggest that somehow we're the ones that are the lapdogs.
So just, what is your party, what are you saying about the use of the N-word? So I want to just make that clear. You made it very clear that you're concerned with students who feel that this word, who know that this word is dehumanizing. Should it be expunged? Should professors, should it be off limits when it comes to academic discourse?
I mean, look, at the end of the day, this false dilemma that has been presented, when we have a community who is saying explicitly that this causes them harm in the environments that they're trying to access their employment or they're trying to access their education, we should listen to them first. It's the same when we're talking about gender equality. It's the same when we're talking about sexual orientation. It's the same when we're talking about any marginalized group. We should listen first and give primacy to the groups that are impacted in these environments that are public institutions. And so, I'm in support of the direction and the calls coming from the black academics and the black students and the black workers in these institutions. And I would suggest that the rest of the politicos watching ought to do the same.
Anything else you want to say about this?
There's going to be a lot of people with a lot of opinions on what's happened over the last week. A year ago, yesterday, I was elected as an MP, sent here on a mandate to serve people in Hamilton Centre. We are in the middle of a pandemic, and while other parties want to rattle their sabers and pretend like somehow forcing people back into the polls, when in fact Quebec is a hot spot, where my community is an absolute hotspot in the GTHA, is foolhardy. And I think at the end of the day, if people want accountability for the government, the best way to provide accountability is to allow the functions of Parliament to continue to exist in its committee structure, particularly when we have a minority. The quickest way that the Liberal government could have made the WE scandal go away is to rush to the polls, which is exactly what I believe the Liberals wanted. The best way we believe, to hold them accountable is to continue the work at committee, which is exactly what my colleague Charlie Angus is doing. I'm the deputy of ethics as well. I've sat on those committees. That is a place where the PMO's office and the Liberal government do not have control over the outcomes on those investigations and those reports. And I just want to remind Canadians that on August 19th, the very critical financial documents that would have come from the Speaker's spotlight were due to come to the Ethics Committee to have a review from all of the members of Parliament under very strict in-camera privacy parameters. And yet on August 18th, the Prime Minister prorogued government. So I'm still very eager to see what are in those documents. We have a right to know. It is our job in a parliamentary system to hold this government to account. And as do Democrats, we're going to continue to do that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you.
I wanted to get your reaction to the latest what's happening in Neskantaga.
The situation in Neskantaga is appalling. This was supposed to be the poster community for Justin Trudeau's promise to get clean water. 25 years this community has had unsafe water. The situation is so bad now, they've had to actually start mass evacuations. We can't get water to the school, the sewage system's broken. People are getting water from buckets. To evacuate into an urban center at a time of a pandemic shows how frightening it is for people in Neskantaga, and we've had no good faith from this government on getting serious about this crisis. The community has been calling for help. Now we've got people having to actually be evacuated.
And Mr. Miller says they're providing $16.5 million to help with the upgrades to Neskataga's water plant. Is this enough, and are they acting fast enough?
You know, what we hear from the government is blah, 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 blah. I ask any Canadian if they think it's possible in a country with the water resources that we have, that you go quarter of a century, 25 years in the life of a community without water, and it's so bad we actually now can't actually even turn the taps on. So Minister Miller has not been serious about this. The community's been crying for help. We've got people evacuated, and up to last night, Minister Miller's office was even refusing to pay for the evacuation. So we need to see better than nice words. We need to see action to clean up this mess in Neskantaga.
It's 3 decades of a boil water advisory. Just talk about that.
I don't think people in Canada can even begin to comprehend what it means to grow up as a child in a community where you get blisters if you try and get your hair washed. The hopelessness it brings, the inability to keep basic things clean. These are the stories I've heard from Neskantaga and other communities in Treaty 9. It's 25 plus years. We can't get the school running. The sewage lift is broken. This is a failed state of affairs. And in the middle of a pandemic, for the government to sit back and let people be so crisis-stricken they actually have to start self-evacuating to get safety, to get clean water in hotels in Thunder Bay because they can't live in their own community, is an appalling state of affairs in this nation.
Filibuster. Do you think that's going to end on the committees that you sit on? Finance, right?
Well, we can't get the issue of the privilege of MPs dealt with because the Liberals are filibustering at committee. Ethics will begin on Monday. You know, the Liberals were complaining that the committees were being held up trying to get answers on the issues of we and other pandemic spending, so we offered them a special committee. We said, well, why don't we set up a separate committee and we could deal with all that? And then we offered, we got nothing out of it, so we're going back to our committees to do our work. Ethics is well equipped to handle the issues in terms of questions of conflict of interest, questions of potential illegal lobbying and pandemic spending. We'll do the work there. And if the Liberals want to filibuster, that's their choice, but we're going to get answers. Well, I think what the government thought is if they threatened an election to stop us from doing our work, that somehow that would mean we'd stop doing our work. Committees have the right to study these issues. It's well within the mandate of the Ethics Committee. We had offered a separate committee to the Liberals in order to try and work with them, but they didn't want to work with us. So I say it's up to the Liberals. How long are they going to interfere with the work of finance? Are they going to continue to filibuster the Health Committee? Are they going to filibuster ethics? They need to start working with the opposition.
What do you think about the motion, though, from the Conservatives about the Health Committee? Are you, well, what do you think about it? Like, do you think it's reasonable what it's in there? Are you afraid that because of the amount of documents or things that are necessary, you won't be able to get them because it's...
Well, the reality with the Health Committee is that the government has been filibustering the work. They were not wanting to work. Is it reasonable in the timelines to get these documents? You come back to the committee and say, well, listen, we're trying to get these documents, but it may take longer. That's what a reasonable government does. You can't filibuster a health committee in the midst of a pandemic. It's ridiculous. It just sends a really bad message. You know, in March, I was very, very proud of our Prime Minister and the way he seemed to be handling COVID, and we were all going to work together, and we had established a special committees so that we could actually ask longer questions, and all that's gone out the window. Now it's the Liberals, it's our way or the highway, it's no, we're not going to talk about it, no, we're not going to give answers. We're in the midst of the biggest medical catastrophe in a century, and the second wave is worse than the first. They need to start working with us.